It is always a pleasure to be back here in Puerto Rico, but today is even more special. The opportunity to really address the space and the science sector in Puerto Rico is kind of unique. So thank you so much to the Forward Research and Innovation Forum team for the invitation and the opportunity to be here today. So, students, how many students we have here in the room? My students, come on, stand up, stand up. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let me tell you, you are the future of Puerto Rico. You are the future. So I hope, I really hope that your attendance here today is really full of knowledge, but more than anything, give you a motivation and inspiration for the next step. Because without you, all these technologies that we're talking about, we will be having this discussion again 20 years from now. So we need you. So here's what we're going to do. I got to set my timer so I don't stay. Okay, there we go. All right, good. My presentation today is not about me. It's about you. What I want to talk is about the people part. And yes, this is a research and innovation, but without the people, and without us understanding how we deal projects, we're not going to make that much progress. Because that's the difficult part. Believe it or not, that is the difficult part. So the first thing I have here for you, hopefully I can run this.
What is the difference between fear and armor? And when you say that the greatest barrier to daring leadership is not fear, it's armor, you know, that seems confusing to me because what's the difference? The difference is we all feel afraid, but not all of us armor up. I think the most daring, transformative leaders that we've worked with acknowledge the fear and acknowledge the drive. I mean, the really limbic drive to put on some armor and self-protect. But they stay in the fear and work through it and work from a place of open mind, open heart, curiosity. My team confronts me about the kind of unrelenting timelines I'm putting on things and how they're unrealistic, they're driving failure, people are getting, it's creating churn, it's creating problems, and that I need to step back and take a look at why I'm driving these timelines and why I'm not listening to their feedback about more realistic timelines. So that puts me in some fear, like I'm not doing my job, right, as a leader. So I can choose to armor up, and I can choose to say, well, if you can't meet those timelines, I can find some people who can. Or I can go into perfectionism and say, you know, oh my God, I'm gonna get better at it, I'm gonna learn how to do it, I'm gonna be really good at it. Or, you know, defensiveness, perfectionism, numbing. You know, I can just go home and like spend 14 hours on social media, eat 15, you know, cupcakes and, you know, do my thing. Or I can say, shit, I recognize this. This is fear. I'm in fear right now. This is, I'm not good in this. And so I hear y'all. I trust what you're saying. I'm grateful for you telling me. I'm gonna need a few hours to get my head around it and have a hard rumble with you on why I think it's happening. The problem is that fear is just kind of a natural response. Armor, for a lot of us, is a natural response. I'm asking, fear can stay the natural response, make armor a conscious choice. To say, am I self-protecting right now in a way that moves me away from courage, my values, and being a good leader?
I want you all to remember that now up to the end of my presentation. And the reason for that is because when we start talking, especially space, and we talk about the spaceport just, you know, a few minutes ago, anything in space is driven by time. You know, the next window to launch is not going to wait until you have the perfect, you know, team, the perfect timing in terms of the equipment, everything working properly. You have windows that you have to meet. When windows come, and time is a factor, we all, especially if you're the leader, you experience that fear. It's a natural response. And then we get defensive, and the same thing, that the next thing you know is that your team is, even if it's an A team, is not giving you the best. It happens over and over and over. So let's talk a little bit about teams. Share and common goals. I can tell you that if there's one thing that I learned during the pandemic, when you're leading almost 3,000 employees, and you are still responsible for delivering on the mission, both for aeronautics and space, is that you have to have a shared goal. And the team came together in a way that I was not expecting. And now I can reflect on that, because in the moment we were dealing with, we have to keep the employees safe, we have to deliver on the mission. But that shared goal really, really moved mountains at that point in time. We passed the pandemic, we were able to deliver on our mission, and it was really a team effort. It was not one individual, it was a team effort, and we have a shared goal. Shared goal was to keep the employees safe, the security of what we were doing, and deliver on the mission. And we, with everything that was going on, we really have that. Shared goal, common goals. Doesn't matter how good is your team, if you have different goals, different objectives, and we all bring our bias. Let's don't kid ourselves. Everybody has bias, everybody has priorities. At the end of the day, you have to have one thing that everybody is working together for, and that's the responsibility of the leader. Effective communication. That takes a lot of path. It's not just one way. But communication becomes critical, especially when you're dealing with a space and aeronautics mission. You can have a best plan, but if you don't execute that plan, it's not going to take you anywhere. You have to have clear goals, clear roles and responsibilities. People need to know what is their role and what is their responsibility, and you have to make people accountable. You cannot be afraid to have the hard conversation. And the hard conversations should not be in front of everyone. The hard conversation should be a one-on-one kind of conversation. And you should be listening more than being the defensive side. Yes, we all have defensive, we get into that mode. We have to make sure that we use our listening skills. Able to set and execute priorities. Again, when you execute priorities, you also have to manage change. Going back to the pandemic, going back to some of the missions that, you know, I have the opportunity to oversight and work with, you have to make sure that you keep an eye on all the balls, not just one ball, but all the balls, and you are setting priorities as you go. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, today, this is our priority, because without that step, we cannot get to the next one. You have to have clear communication about what it is and what's not. You have to be committed to continuous improvement. And continuous improvement is not about just the processes. Processes are critical. You got to make sure that you review those processes and you adapt as you go. Continuous improvement also applies to the people. And if you can hear, I talk a lot about the people. You as a team leader, you as a team member, you have to make sure that you keep developing yourself, that you understand what are the areas that you're good at, what are the areas that you have to work on. As a team, you also have to work as a team. What are the team dynamics? What are the processes? What are the, teamwork activities and skills that need to be developed by the team? Recognition and celebration of accomplishments. We don't do that very well. We do not do that very well. You have to make sure that you pause and you recognize people for the things that they're doing well. Because everybody said, no, I don't care about recognition. Yeah, well, that is true, but it's not true. Everybody likes to know that they're doing a good job. And if every time that you're going to say something to someone is to criticize someone, to say, well, you can do, then guess what? The next time you come, the person is going to think that you're going to be criticizing them, not to applaud them for what they have been doing. So make sure that you do both. Yes, positive criticism is good, but you also have to make sure that you pause and recognize the people and the teams when they are doing a good job. We all make mistakes. Let's also be very clear about that. We have to make sure that we recognize our mistakes and we move on, because we're humans. We have to do that. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the space program and why the space program is so important. I could have selected any other YouTube movie out there, but I think this one kind of brings the point that I want to make at the end.
Altitude, velocity, light, 8.5 down, 220 feet, 15 forward.
Thank you.
All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff on Apollo 11.
Dave, an extraordinary television picture here.
And this is exploration at its greatest.
This nation should commit itself to achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, I sort of realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore.
So we can talk a lot about the space program. We can talk a lot about what space brings in terms of the benefit and the economic impact, but it takes time. When you look at what are the benefits that we have today because of the Apollo program, and many of you have not even born when the Apollo program, it's not just about innovation, it's not just about inspiration and motivation. It's about all those technologies that are being developed for the space program find a place here on Earth. So imagine now when we start talking about all these emerging technologies, and I have a list of some of those here. Imagine the world 15, 20 years from now. To my students, you have a big responsibility. Some of these technologies, and we have a great conversation last night about some of these technologies. These technologies really can save lives. There's no question about that. But these technologies, too, have, like any technology, have a good side and a bad side. So the responsibility belongs to the individuals that are applying the technology. What are the things that we have to make sure that we do at the beginning, not at the end? Because at the end, it's too late. We got to make sure that we have conscious decisions about how we apply those decisions in terms of the usage of the technology. I have a balance there in terms of project management skills and interpersonal skills. I talk a little bit about the interpersonal skills, but the project management skills are very critical for any project, and the audience here probably can agree with me 100% on this one. You need a good project manager to be able to bring a program or a project with the right outcomes. One thing that we need also to understand as members of the projects is that we are not good at everything. Some people are great in formulation, for people are very good at defining requirements. Some people are good to really take the hit and bring the project to the next step. And then there's some other people that are very, very good at bringing closure to a project. So I will make an analogy to baseball. Do you use the same picture all the time? No. You change your picture as you go. There's nothing wrong with changing individuals as you go in terms of how you manage your programs and projects. And for the team members, that should not be an insult. That should be a way for you to learn what you're doing good, what you need to improve, but it's okay to lead and it's okay to follow. And you have to understand when you're leading, why you're leading, and when you need to say, you know what, for that stage of the project, I am not your best person. This other individual can do a better job. You get more out of that decision than sticking to the idea that you are in charge and the project goes down. Because at the end of the day, doesn't matter who you look for blame, the blame belongs to you. You have to assume that responsibility. That's accountability. You have to have that. I'm not going to touch on all of these points that I make here in this chart, but when we talk about leadership, I want to talk about ethics too. With a lot of these technologies, ethics become critical. You got to understand what are the laws, the regulations, the policy, and what are the ethics associated with that. That is a must when you talk about space and when you talk science. Risk management. Let me tell you, risk management is a critical one. And I think Mr. Ray Lugo is here with us today. He was a former Senate Director at NASA Glenn. And when we are working in aeronautics mission, for example, I can give you an example. Sometimes we get so into executing the technology, what we're going to prove, that we forget that there's something called wind tunnels, that if we are going to use the wind tunnels, we have to define the requirements for that facility before we start executing. Because if not, we're going to find ourselves in a big timing and schedule issue. We did that a couple of times. So how we fix that? You have to have independent technical teams that review your progress all the time. But it starts with the formulation. You have to plan for the whole life cycle of the program. You cannot wait until you're going to test and then say, oops, I forgot that I cannot fit that hardware on the wind tunnel, and I have to make modifications to the wind tunnel. That's an example that happens. It is not intentional. It's just that we get so into the technology that we forget that we need the infrastructure to execute. I will make the same analogy with the space activities and science activities. You need to look at the whole cycle. You need to understand the infrastructure. You have to understand the technologies. You have to understand the skills and the individuals that you need to execute at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. That is critical. Complexity. We are really in a very complex world. There's no kidding about that. It is very complex. Things are changing all the time. So managing change become one of your big jobs. All the time managing change. This summit gives us a little bit of all the things that I have here. It gives the opportunity for us to pave the way for innovation. Let's learn from each other. Innovation in all sense of the word. Benefit, how this can improve life here on Earth. The advancements in health, climate, communication, and other technology fields. Economic impact, knowledge, inspiration, that's a big one. Inspiration and motivation for the future, and goes on and on and on. Let me tell you, I use this same chart to talk about the benefits of the Artemis program. So as you can see, technology do that for all of us. It doesn't matter what is the topic. You can do each one of these, just driven by technology. It is innovation, it's creativity, it's how we come together to improve life here on planet Earth. And last but not least, remember the first chart when Brené Brown was talking about fear? These are the things that you have to keep in mind. All those things are things that you have to work as a leader. The first one is probably the most important, knowing your strength and weaknesses. You must do that from day one. Thank you so much for your time.